This is Heather Dell and Jay Taylor. You're listening to Motown Realty, real information about real estate for real people. We've got some fabulous tips for you today. We've got some great callers. We're going to talk a little bit about the accomplishments that Detroit made in 2020, and it's the first day of the rest of everyone's life today.
Absolutely. This is the first week that I can say we are breathing a little deeper.
I've seen shoulders drop all over the city.
The world did not implode in anarchy.
Yeah. And the housing market is insane. I've got it showing at 5:30 and they've already got 8 offers. They just listed it today. I wrote 4 offers yesterday. If you are going to sell, please call us, 248-464-1116. We need homes. It could not be a better time to sell. Jay Taylor Associates, look us up. We need homes. We really do. I've got buyers, I can't even get them in my house.
I guarantee you put a house in the market today, there will be a lineup of buyers for it.
Yeah. And unless there's a tree growing through the roof and a family of well, you know what? Even with a tree growing through the roof and a family of raccoons, they'll still sell fast.
I have one of those for sale right now.
Do you?
Yeah.
I had an investor once that used to say, the worse the better. Because he wanted to beat him up on price. And one time I texted him and I said, listen, there's raccoons and squirrels. And he wrote back, that's amazing. Get it.
Yeah, totally. My favorite buyer over the 2020 year was this guy he actually produces an HGTV show, Good Bones. And when you watch the show, you'll see that he literally looks for the worst homes. Like, he literally gets geeked out and excited
That's like
the
this guy.
uglier it is, and
the more horrible it is.
he does a great job. He buys them for like $10,000 or $15,000 and then sells them for $100 to $150. But and very little profit in there because he spends it all renovating. But the truth is, the show is really entertaining, and I love selling shitty properties.
Well, it is fun, and we do like to get stuff cleaned up. I was dealing with the land bank today too. That was always fun. Let's see. Oh, but real quick, I know we've got some callers, and we're going to talk about home inspections today. Home inspections, we get lots of questions about that. Those are essential when you go under contract for a house. We're going to elaborate a little bit more on that. A lot of you out there have probably gotten an offer accepted, gone through the inspection process, and found out that there was catastrophic damage or, things that you couldn't get yourself into because it was going to be too expensive. So we're going to have Kevin
Stripling.
Kevin Stripling today is going to give us some tips. He is a home inspector. He's going to give us some tips on managing, prioritizing some of the things that often make us walk away from a potential house that we love. So, and we've also, I had one more thing. Let's see here. Do you know home burglary is down 35%, according to the Detroit News, which is according to the U.S. Bureau of Statistics and something.
Census analysis.
Yeah, something like that.
The International Bureau of Numbers.
Something like that. Yeah, from 2019 to 2020 in Detroit, home burglary is down 35%.
Do you think that's because the Ring doorbell became so popular?
Well, I think the Ring can take some credit for it. And I also think people staying home have had the chance to go get dogs. But, and in Detroit, the last house was demolished in August for that $265 million blight removal project. And I keep forgetting to kind of celebrate that. I thought that was pretty great.
Do you know how many homes they demolished with $265 million?
A lot.
I think it was $50,000 slated per house, so math sports.
I don't like math.
I don't either.
I was not a mathlete.
All right, so we have a caller coming in right now. We're going to answer this call. Hey, Kevin, thanks for calling in. This is Jay Taylor and Heather Dell. You're on the air.
Well, hey, Jay Taylor. Happy New Year to you.
And to you as well. Kevin, we're so glad you called in. I want to give a brief introduction, but I'm going to leave that up to you. Could you please tell the listeners who you are and what you do?
Well, my name is Kevin Stripling, and I'm the owner of Home Inspection Professionals. Big shout-out to Kristen, who's manning the phones over in St. Clair Shores. But we're a home inspection company. I think we're probably the largest in Southeast Michigan. I've been doing inspections for over 20 years now. And 24/7, we take phone calls. So
I will tell you right now, the very first home that I bought in Detroit, you weren't the inspector, but one of your guys, Paul, was the inspector,
Okay.
and he could not speak more highly of you and the company and how you guys are trained and how thorough you are, and I was really impressed with the inspection process. And I don't know the numbers. Certainly, it's nearing 100 inspections you've done for my team and for the agents that
Oh,
are on it.
I mean, I could say 20 in the last 3 months.
Yeah, so I can say you guys handle a lot of business. What I love about you guys, I'm just going to do a brief shout out to you, is you have multiple inspectors, all with the same criteria, all with the same MO. The way you do business is universal. It's a high quality product, but because you have so many inspectors, you guys are available in a short notice. You promise, almost immediate. When the inspector leaves the home, the report is in the inbox already.
Which
You're
is
not
critical
waiting
in
for
this
it.
market because everyone's trying to get the grab, right? There's
Yeah.
so little inventory.
So,
Yeah,
anyways,
like I say, we pride ourselves. We can do scheduling. We answer the phones from probably 8 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. We have a 24-hour online scheduler. So if you go to www.homeinspectionprofessionals.com, you can schedule 24/7 with us. And like you were saying, it's been a busy year. We had a record year last year. We were probably almost 1,700 home inspections last year. And,
Wow.
I appreciate, yeah, so that's how busy we were. So even through the pandemic, you understand that we were essential and we were still going into homes. It was a little bit challenging, but we got through it, and we're looking forward to a good 2021. So
aren't we all?
a little bit more about my company. Like I say, we're licensed builders. We're certified mold inspectors and remediators. I have a lead inspector on staff. We actually do septic and well evaluations. We don't see a whole lot of that in Wayne County, but keep in mind, Macomb County, you're required to have an evaluation done if you transfer property.
And you
And
should
also
always have
Oakland-
it done in Oakland County. Yeah.
Oakland County has the largest number of septic systems in the state of Michigan, and there are no county requirements on that. So you're not required to do a point-of-sale transfer on an evaluation or on a septic or well system out there, but we do provide that service for you in Oakland County.
And if you're for those of you watching WJZZ podcast, I have done some work in Oakland County. I'm real familiar with septic tanks and the fields and the perk tests and all that kind of stuff. If you're out there working with a realtor and they don't recommend it, you need to, especially in Oakland County, you need to get that done. You need to make sure that that's not a problem. So give the home inspection professionals a call. It's really important. Just because the county or the city doesn't think that it's essential for the transaction doesn't mean it isn't. That's having to put in an engineered field or, dig the whole yard up. You're looking at thousands of dollars. So anyway, thank you for bringing that up.
Sure. And the other thing, another service that we do provide is we do sewer scoping, and it's important as well because we run a camera through there. We charge roughly about $150 for that service. Our clients get a video at the end, and realistically, wherever you are, and anything that was really pre-1980, built in pre-1980, I always recommend that. Cast iron lines, clay crocs are susceptible to root systems growing into them. When you start looking at the cost to replace something on like that could run anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 or more to have your sewer line replaced going out to the city sewer. So we provide that service. It's pretty quick. It's pretty easy. And I was telling Jay earlier, we are a one-stop shop for all your inspection needs. So we can schedule that at the time of the inspection. So very important to have your sewer line scoped.
Oh my gosh, so important. I had a doctor. I actually just ran into her at Myers over here on 8 Mile, and East English Village, and you guys did a scope for her. And she's standing there. She's a general practitioner. And she says, "Oh my God, this is exactly like a colonoscopy." Kevin, really quick, do you mind? I'm serious. I mean, it made sense, right?
Correct.
Do you mind just quickly talking briefly about the, people don't. I think when we say clay or terracotta, they don't quite understand that versus cast iron versus PVC and how roots can be a factor?
Sure. It's pretty rare that root systems can grow into a PVC pipe. I mean, obviously, cast iron has a life expectancy, believe it or not, of 50 years. And you're looking at, something that was built in the 1920s. You're looking at a 100-year-old system. And even with those clay crocs, what happens is the root systems can actually, because the water, the trees are looking for a water source, and they're going to find the least path of resistance. And when they grow in there, lines can actually sink as well. So it's one of these situations that running the camera through there, it's important. And you can do preventative maintenance on a line going out to the city sewer. You can have a camera run through it. You can have the cutter go through there to cut any root systems. But we try to find the problem before you purchase the property.
And
So,
that cutter, that's basically a snake where you put,
Yep.
just for our watchers, that goes out through the line. They try to get out to the point where your line hits the city line. And when it comes back in,
Exactly.
sometimes it has really interesting stuff on it. And in fact, I know one time, I don't know, it wasn't you guys, but I know one inspector actually recovered a diamond ring that way.
Ooh,
well, that was a good day for that.
heyday.
Right?
So Kevin,
You'd be surprised at what gets put down the system. We don't recommend any time that you put wipes down the system, because that's probably one of the biggest, besides roots, that's probably one of the biggest things that clog systems. So they might say that they're toilet safe or friendly, but that's a misnomer. So don't flush those down the toilet.
they still will get caught on roots. So Kevin,
Correct.
before we kick you off our show, because we've got a bunch of people calling in today, I wanted to ask you this one question, and feel free to take your time answering it because it's not super easy. We watch people buy homes on a daily basis, and we watch them inspect them on a daily basis, and we're very familiar that it's a tenuous moment in the transaction, because a lot of buyers, once they see the inspection report, are disillusioned with how they thought it was in great condition, and now all of a sudden this home looks to be a piece of junk. Are there
Okay.
findings in your inspection process that typically scare people away from purchases, but you also know have easy solutions?
Sure, anything can be fixed, Jay. You know that. And it's one of these situations where we don't pass or fail. And that's the first thing that's important, because we don't pass or we don't fail inspections. Basically, it's our job at home inspection professionals is to make observations and report them back to you or your client. So, you're looking at big ticket items. When you start talking about roof systems, when you start talking about heat exchangers and furnaces, HVAC systems, that's when you start looking into thousands of dollars, potentially thousands of dollars, to replace these things. So that's the type of service that we provide. When it comes down to the report writing, we're going to get that information out to you as quick as we can at the time of the inspection. But keep in mind, Jay, like I said, everything is fixable. I think that my company, Kristen and Tina, probably handle at least 3, maybe 4 phone calls a week when it comes down to environmental issues. When we start talking about mold in the attic, when we start talking about asbestos, and especially if you're purchasing something really pre-1960, it's possible that you could run into something like that. And keep in mind, asbestos is fine when it's in a solid form. When I use the word asbestos, people have a tendency to freak out a little bit. But as a state of Michigan certified asbestos inspector, I would tell you that really the cost has come down on abatement and remediation for that. So if an inspector brings up that there's asbestos on your piping, you don't freak out about that, because once again, it is fixable, it is repairable. Mold in the attic is very common. Once or twice a week we run into it. And honestly, without proper ventilation, it's just, building science has changed over the last 50 years. I mean, it changes every 10, 20 years. So if your inspector finds mold in the attic, there are companies out there that are affordable that you can actually have that remediated.
Kevin, I just want to remind everybody that they're watching Wjzz Cool TV. This is Motown Realty with Jay Anderson, Jay Taylor, and Heather Dell. We've got Kevin from Home Inspection Professionals. So you were talking about asbestos abatement and not having things deter you with a home inspection.
Correct. One of the biggest things that we find too is that when it comes down to furnace systems, we're going to run them. We're not HVAC technicians, but we do have equipment that we can test for natural gas leaks, and we can find carbon monoxide. A lot of systems are closed, and we're not able to get into the heat exchangers, but the average life expectancy for a forced air gas system is usually about 15 to 18 years. If you're looking at a system that's been neglected, if you're looking at something that's 20 plus years old, that's when we would probably tell you, you probably want to have a second opinion on this. You probably want to have a qualified, licensed HVAC person to look at that system for you. So, once again, you don't need to freak out when it comes to this. If your inspector finds something that a big ticket item, things are fixable. The other thing about that too is when I talk about big ticket items, our job isn't really to find the nick in the cabinet or to find the scratch or the broken tile on the floor. Because really, a lot of times homeowners will go in and they're going to change things out. They're going to put their colors. They're going to paint. They're going to, put new flooring in. So really, we try to open every window. We test every receptacle. Windows are a big ticket item. When you start getting into windows that are 20 plus years old, and you start to find seal failures on them, and you start to find, broken glass. When you start to get the 3 to 5 windows, that's when you start to think, okay, maybe it's time for us to upgrade the windows. And that's kind of when you're going forward over the next 3 to 5 years of your home ownership, you kind of have to look at the cost of that. So, and what we do with all my inspectors, we kind of give estimates on we don't write anything down, but we can kind of give you a ballpark in regards to what it would cost to maybe repair or replace the big ticket items.
Well, that is awesome. Kevin, thanks you so much for calling in. We hope that everyone goes to www.homeinspectionprofessionals.com to book an inspection with you this year.
Hey, Jay, for a peace of mind every time, get hip to your next inspection.
Get hip. I love it.
Get hip.
All right, well, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, folks. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Take care.
They're great.
That was incredible.
They're awesome.
So informative.
Yeah. And they also have a way of relaying information that sounds scary that really isn't. Like he was saying, people hear the word asbestos and they just come unglued. And then they just need to learn about encapsulation and just don't break it up in little pieces and eat it or breathe it. That kind of thing. So that was pretty terrific.
Hey, this is Jay Taylor and Heather Dell. Do we have another caller on the line?
Mr. Nobody?
All right, looks like he hung up.
Mrs. Nobody?
Well, I know that another caller we're having call in today is a guy named Brian Mutter. Brian is a mortgage guy. He has more energy than my little 2-month-old puppy. This guy will he'll bring enough energy for a whole room. And what I love about Brian is that he also will not take no for an answer when mortgages are hard. So if you have been declined by other mortgage lenders, this is your guy.
Brian has gotten some of my buyers into some great products. This last year with the COVID, we had lots of changes. Some people, they had job changes or they lost their jobs or their income changed, and having a good lender and a good mortgage professional on your side is essential because you want somebody who will pick up the phone. You want somebody who will actually go to bat for you. It's not, when you work with someone like him, it's not like you just go to an 800 number and end up in a call queue. You actually have somebody helping you along the process. So, do we have Brian?
I do not know. Brian, are you there? Hey, Brian, thanks for calling in.
Brian?
Hello.
Hey, it's Heather Dell and Jay Taylor on Motown Realty and Wjzz Cool TV. Thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm good, guys. Good to chat with you. How have you guys been?
Well, I took a big deep breath today for the first time in a long time, so I'm good.
Brian, I just got done introducing you to our callers, saying that you not only bring enough energy to fill a room, but you also don't take no for an answer. So when a person is hard to get financed, you have found creative ways to do it. So I want to ask you a couple questions. First off, introduce yourself with who you write mortgages for and how long you've been in the biz.
Sure. So I'm a mortgage advisor with a brokerage out of Birmingham, Michigan called Rockwood Mortgage. So as a broker, that means we work with a bunch of different lenders, so we can put, a square peg in a square hole, a round peg in a round hole. So we have options for our clients. I've been in the business since 2004. In that time, I've kind of touched every base in the industry with the exception of appraisals. But yeah, so I've been in the business a long time, and I very much enjoy being able to help people with, buying a house is a big deal. So it's nice to be able to kind of make that process simple and easy for someone to understand and, tackle a big goal in their life like buying a home.
One thing that you do that I so appreciate that a lot of lenders don't is if I send you a first-time home buyer, you don't just assume that they understand what all this means. You don't just assume that they understand what the underwriting process entails or what this means or what PMI is. And for our viewers and listeners, if you want to elaborate on a few of those things, it's always really helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Heather. It's funny. So in the majority of the time I've been in the business, I was really in like an operations / admin / behind the scenes processing role. And that whole experience is kind of what drives my approach with clients now. In other words, like I just bring a very sort of like informational approach. And to your point about explaining things to clients, like we talked about, buying a house, it's a humongous deal. You're asking to borrow a ton of money, right? And so that in and itself is kind of intimidating. But what I found is, when my clients sort of understand what to expect and understand the process and, what comes next and why does it have to be this way? Why can't it be that way? What are some other possible outcomes? It takes a lot of the anxiety out of the transaction, not just for themselves, but also for me too.
And the agent.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's just one of these things. It sounds kind of hokey or cliche, but a little communication goes a long way. So in this case, we're talking, educate the client, let them know what's going on, make sure you can answer all their questions, tell them, set the expectation. And the same thing with all the people involved in the transaction, the realtors on both sides. If we all communicate and we all know what's going on, everybody can kind of breathe a little easier.
I have a ton of questions for him. Jay, do you have some questions?
Well, I'm curious. Right now, in the age of COVID, March signals a full year of us battling COVID. But, I read today that today is like the 1-year anniversary of the first case hitting America, which is crazy.
Oh, wild, sure.
Yeah. And I remember in March when this was really blowing up, there was never-ending changes.
Ugh.
It was every single day we'd learn something new about how it was affecting the mortgage industry or how it was affecting the real estate industry, how it was affecting appraisers. And, I would be on these calls where it'd say, all right, we learned just this morning they made this change. And then 2 hours later, the change would change again.
Yeah.
So I think that
Precisely.
level of adjustment has slowed down. But I would say, fill us in on how the landscape is a little bit different in 2021 than it was even ending 2020. What is changing? Are mortgages getting more strict? Are they getting easier? Are rates going up? Are they going down? Where are we right now?
Great question. So it's a bit like a seesaw. There's a bit of not bad news. In some ways, things have tightened up. At the same time, rates have gotten incredibly low. So there's a few things that we've seen. And like you said, Jay, when everything kind of hit and we started here in Michigan with the shutdown and other states, there were daily things would change, guidelines would change, rules to lending would change. That most of that has kind of stabilized, but what we saw in that time was one of the biggest things what we call non-traditional mortgage types. So these are not your Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, vanilla mortgages. These are maybe where somebody they can't qualify with the pay stub, but they can qualify using all the money in their bank, a bank statement program.
Like a person who's on a 1099 for our listeners.
Exactly. Like so maybe if you have a business and you can't necessarily show income the way that a traditional mortgage underwriter is expecting, there's alternative programs where we can say, hey, we have all this money in the bank, for example. Can we use that? So a lot of those programs have gone away. At the very least, those have been suspended indefinitely. Beyond that, one of the main challenge that our clients are having in some cases are the real hit seems to be for hourly workers. That is to say, a lot of industries have been impacted by this, and so it's not uncommon, or it wasn't uncommon for people to maybe, they have a job where they're 40 hours a week. They've been there a long time, but suddenly because of COVID, they're furloughed for 6 weeks, 90 days, whatever the thing is. So what happens in that case is the way the bank calculates your income. Hey, sorry, Jack, sorry that you were furloughed or laid off or on unemployment for some temporary time. Let's pretend that you were on unemployment for 3 months. Well, when you get back to work and the bank looks at your income, they're going to look at the last 24 months of your income. And that 3 months where you earned no money from your job, that's going to count against you.
Yeah.
So that has been a challenge. And you mentioned, too, Heather, about 1099 workers or self-employed people, business owners. That has gotten there have been a few layers added to that process. The lenders now want to see things like a profit and loss for the business for the year. They want to see bank statements for the business. So, in a nutshell, I would say that, I guess the way you could say it is, the lenders have tightened up the guidelines in a lot of ways, right? Some folks are more affected, like we talk about hourly workers, self-employed. If you're fortunate enough to have a salary job in this time, you're much less likely to be affected by these new mortgage rules as they relate to COVID. So we have tightening on one side. At the same time, because of all this bad news around the world, if you will, mortgages are strange in that typically bad economic news for the world is often good news for mortgage rates. So bad news in the world, mortgage rates go down, which is a silver lining, I suppose. So we've seen that happen right now. Rates are incredibly low. I mean, when we say historical low, that's not hyperbole. That's not like a sales jargon. Rates have, honest to God, never been this low.
Tell me, what's the
home
lowest
values are up.
rate you've written?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
What's the lowest rate you've written since COVID?
Under the limbo stick, as low as it goes.
Yeah, 2.25 on a 10-year fix.
Wow.
Yeah, and another. I'm glad you asked that, Jay. Another trend that we're seeing lately is this year, since about the last 8 months, is that typically, I don't want to get in the weeds too much, but it's important for listeners and viewers to know, when you get a mortgage, there's not just one rate available to you. There's a rate that's available to you at no additional cost, what we call the PAR rate, like in golf, PAR. But you can also pay points. In other words, you pay an additional fee up front, and the bank gives you a lower rate. Traditionally, I think most people are like me. My business has always been about whatever the going rate in the market is. We don't typically charge points. We always explain the option to people, but most people choose whatever the rate is in the market for their situation.
And just quickly touch on what points are for our viewers.
Yeah, sure. So for any loan situation, whatever your parameters are, credit score, property type, 30-year fixed, 10-year, all these things, based on that day in the market, there's an interest rate that, again, per your situation, here's the rate in the market for you. When you buy points, you're saying to the bank, hey, I'll pay you extra money up front. Think of it like increased closing costs. I'll pay points. And in exchange for me paying this fee up front, you give me a rate, an interest rate lower than what's in the market. So it's essentially, it's like a long-term savings investment. I pay some money up front to save some money every month in my payment, but over 15 or 30 years, it's a significant savings.
Tell me
With
about
rates
that.
As low as they are. Sure, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Could the points ever cost more or less for certain people? Like if I were to be offered a point at a certain rate, could a different buyer be offered a cheaper rate for that same discount? Or is it a function of the value of the home, or is it purely static?
And before that, I just want to remind everybody that you are watching WJZZ Podcast, listening to WJZZ Podcast. This is Botown Realty with Jay Taylor and Heather Dell. Go ahead, Brian. We've got mortgage extraordinaire Brian Mutter on the phone.
Sure. Yeah, and Jay, you were asking about points. So great question. There's a few things that are important to, I guess, clarify. So when we talk about points, like, hey, I'm going to pay 1 point. A point means 1% of the loan amount. So if you're going to borrow $100,000, 1 point would cost you $1,000, right? Now, it's not linear. Let's pretend I'm going to make up numbers for this example. Let's say the par rate is 3%. But you want to buy the rate down. You want to pay points in exchange for a rate of 2.75. Well, the lender might charge you, when we talk points, it's not like 1 point for every percent of the interest rate. So for example, and the cost, in other words, how much does each lower rate cost, how many points, is a factor of a lot of things, Jay. This is one of the things you asked. So a person with a higher credit score, the points, that person will be able to buy fewer points to achieve the same low rate that somebody else with a lower credit score might have to pay more money in points to achieve the same interest rate. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So it is a function of the borrower.
The function of the borrower, function of the size of the mortgage. And it's a lot of people are sort of turned off the idea of buying points, and I don't blame them. I mean, I think everybody in life, nobody wants to pay more than they have to for whatever it is. But when it comes to buying points, it's a fairly easy analysis to say, does this make sense? You know, it's an investment. Like I said, you're paying money up front. In return, you receive a lower interest rate. That means your payment's lower, and a 30-year mortgage has 360 payments. So if you save money every month, you do that over 360 months, it's a tremendous savings. So typically what I tell my clients, if they're thinking about buying points, we say, hey, how long do you expect to be in the home? In other words, are you even going to be in this mortgage long enough to recoup the money that you initially invested? Because, again, you invest money up front to save money in the long term. So it's a fairly simple analysis, but that is one trend that we've seen as rates have come as low as they have. People seem to be more willing to spend money for an even lower rate.
Let me ask this question then, because I absolutely love putting you on the spot. It's a two-part question. Number one, if you were to refinance your mortgage at the 2-year mark, and say the break-even spot where, hey, you own this home for more than 4 years and the points you bought paid for themselves.
Yep.
If you refinance it at the 2-year mark, have you undone that? Like, have you just undone the savings because you went through a refi, got a different rate, and you didn't save money long enough to make the points worth it?
Yes, that is a great point. Yes, in other words, yeah, I mean, you could essentially, how do I put it? I suppose it wouldn't be that you lost the money, right? It would be that you, how do I put it? In your scenario, yes, you know, a person, you know, pays money up front, you know, at their refinance to get an even lower rate. They buy points to get the rate down. Let's say that their break even, like you said, is 2 years, but they refinance after a year for an even lower rate. You know, if they had, again, I'm going to make up numbers. Let's say that they spent $1,000 in the first place to bring the rate down on the first transaction, and by the end of year one, they've only actually, quote unquote, saved $500. So I suppose that the way I would advise a client is I would say, hey, it's not necessarily a bad idea to refinance because the lower rate is, I mean, a lower rate is good, right? But my advice would be, hey, initially you did this to save, you invested $1,000. You've only earned half of that back. So when we evaluate this second refinance possibility, we can't ignore the fact that you're still $500 upside down on your initial investment. So that will just have to become part of the sort of analysis for, do we do this again? Does it make sense?
And then the second part of my question, again, putting you right on the spotlight, does the mortgage lender, you in this scenario, or any mortgage guy out there, benefit from the sale of a point?
I am so glad you asked that, Jay, because I think that there is a perception in the mortgage business that when a mortgage advisor tells you, hey, here's the rate for you today, if you want a lower rate, you can pay these points and pay this fee. I think that there's a perception that, yes, that mortgage guy is, that there's somehow a benefit for the mortgage guy for whatever rate you take. One of the things, when the housing market crashed back in, 2008, 2009, Congress put a tremendous amount of reform on the mortgage part of the industry, some for good, some for bad. One of the things that they've done that I think is fantastic is, to your point, Jay, no. I as a mortgage lender, I make the same amount of money. First off, we are paid by the bank. My customers never pay me. My company is paid the same commission from the bank, whether the client takes a 30-year loan or a 15-year loan, whether the client takes the rate that is in the market, what we call the par rate, or if the client chooses to spend a bunch of money on points. My company is paid the same commission. The reason that's one of the reforms I really like is because everybody's heard stories, I think, of mortgage people kind of pulling a fast one, right? Hey, I didn't realize until after I had signed the papers that these fees increased, for example. Mm-hmm. So with this aspect of the reform, it's completely transparent. In other words, there is, honest to gosh, no incentive for me to encourage a client to do this transaction or to do the transaction this way. We're paid a flat rate from the bank, so it's, and I'll be honest, that's a really good question, Jay. And because of this, the way they've done this reform, I can say with a straight face that nobody in the industry is going to make any more or less money if you do your mortgage this way or that way. If you take this rate or that rate, it's all the same.
It's all a function of the amount of the mortgage and then the commission rate. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Great. And by the way, very good question, both of those, especially about the points and does it make sense? It's just, I think a lot of people tend to get overwhelmed when they think about mortgage. They think, they just shut down. It's a big sophisticated thing, and the reality is it's with a little bit of brain power and the right person kind of advising you and walking you through things. It's not doesn't need to be a challenging or intimidating process.
Yeah, especially if the basics are thoroughly explained, like amortization and the points and percent down and FHA versus conventional, et cetera, then it kind of takes a lot of the fear out of it.
Yeah, and kind of like we talked about at the beginning of the call, it's so much of just life anyway, but you guys experience it, and when you work with your clients too, it's all about setting the expectations. So if a client comes to me and there's some questionable aspects to, maybe they want to get pre-approved, but something is not perfect or there's an issue, we just talk about it. You know what I mean? We just kind of communicate through things, and that just seems to provide a better experience for everybody.
I would agree with that.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for calling in. Any last words to our audience?
No, guys, both Jay, thank you so much. Heather, thank you as well. And I'm happy to help anybody with any mortgage or real estate questions. I always say, of course, whether or not we do business is totally fine. Like I said, I've been doing this for going on 17 years now, so I've got a lot of knowledge that's useless unless I'm having a conversation like this. So, guys, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your viewers and listeners.
How should somebody get in touch with you if they say, wow, I want that 2.25%?
Sure. You guys can call me. Any of your listeners or viewers can call me or even text me. My direct number is 248-956-0445. And we're on the web at rockwoodmortgage.com. Again, that's rockwoodmortgage.com. And anybody who wishes to apply can there's a button at the top right-hand side of the webpage, apply online. And again, I'd love to help anybody however I can.
Would that get them to Brian Mutter, or would that get them to some weird clearinghouse that may or may not reach you?
No, great question. That will come directly to me.
Perfect.
Great question. Yes. It's useless if I don't know what's sitting there. So, yeah, that'll come right to me. And like I said, anybody can call me direct, 248-956-0445.
Well, thanks for calling in, Brian.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian.
You got it, guys. It was great talking to you guys. Listen, if we don't talk soon before it, have a good weekend, okay?
You too. Thanks.
Thanks. Take care.
All right, bye. He's terrific.
He's terrific.
Yeah, he's extremely creative. He's gone to the mat for some people for me. During the COVID changes, one in particular didn't have a change to income, didn't have a change to employment, didn't have the credit score didn't go down, and the bank came back. We'd been through the inspection, we had gone into final underwriting, the appraised, blah blah blah, and they said, "Oh well, you know what? We changed our mind. Now you need to have this, and this, and this." And he really went to bat, and told them exactly what they needed to do. And any good lender, should really communicate that well. You want to have a human being to speak to. It's a big purchase. It's the largest asset most people buy, and you want to know what you're getting into. Speaking of buying stuff,
good transition.
We're getting closer to Muralin going on the market.
Goodness, that's a beautiful home.
Yeah, it is.
If anyone's looking for something, we'll call it the crown, the jewel of the University District. This is a corner lot with private yard.
Why can't it be a tiara?
It could be a tiara.
Hashtag tiara.
It has an attached garage.
I know.
It has a
attached garage.
Very rare in the University District, and you have one in this home. It's over 4,000 square feet. It's got all the baths upgraded, all the rooms fully renovated. That first floor is just expansive, huge door walls letting you out into a spacious backyard. It's a perfect home for anyone who wants something that's going to be maintenance-free, ethically renovated, all updated. It's amazing. It's got a non-finished but expansive basement with a fireplace. So it would be one of those places that you could go down there and make a man cave out of. It's just incredible.
4.5 baths.
How many?
4.5.
That's,
And an attached garage.
I might say that's too many baths.
I wouldn't want to clean that many, but I suppose if I was buying that house to live in, I wouldn't be cleaning my own toilets.
That's right.
Not that I'm above cleaning toilets. I do it all the time. So, Golden Age of Housing, Muirlin, 18404 Muirlin. Give us a call. Look us up, J. Taylor Associates. If you're in the market for a house in University District, absolutely stunning. And worth every penny. Worth every penny. We're also putting up, Alanosi's going up tomorrow.
Alanosi. Tell me more about
Chocolates,
Alanosi.
ice cream, and spumoni. Spumoni? I always say it wrong. Got some fabulous pictures of the soda fountain.
It's a 100-year-old soda fountain.
100, yeah. It's stunning. It is absolutely, the pictures turned out gorgeous. It was just, it's ready to go. All it needs is, put the ice cream in there, put the soda in there. Everything is just polished to perfection. It's like walking back into time warp. So the actual soda fountain and the whole facility and the vendor contracts and all of the inventory of ingredients and packaging and a fantastic building on McNichols and Goldburn. Really cool building.
And it's got proprietary recipes.
Yep.
And it's got the only slicer that you can make sliced spumoni. We're talking, this is a really rare find for a very affordable price. You could own not only the real estate with an attached like warehouse and parking lot and everything. You also get the business
Refrigerator truck
included with it. Mm-hmm. And so you would be able to right off the bat start building an empire of ice cream, chocolate, and spumoni.
And don't we all love comfort food? Especially now, if 2020 taught us anything, it's comfort food. Yeah, there's established distribution in some great stores.
Name one of them.
Papa Joe's.
Papa Joe's.
Yep.
You could right now own a company that serves ice cream to Papa Joe's.
Established relationships. All it's waiting for is someone to come in and seize the opportunity.
Well, and
Ramp up production.
the seller will be the first one to say, so he's the grandson of the person who founded the company.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 3 generations of family members running Alanosi Ice Cream and Chocolatier. And those 3 generations have lovingly cared for it. I don't know how long it's been since they've had their doors open for business that's walk-in, but I think that's the next frontier of whoever opens it.
I think it's been at least 30 years.
Well, yeah, it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
So we're hitting 30. And that's crazy.
I know.
You think 90s was like a decade ago, but it's 30
What?
years ago. And, the doors have been shuttered. The windows have been blocked in. So somebody who buys it could easily just become a neighborhood asset by opening it back up again.
I would love to see that. I think that'd be a great shot in the arm. People love the authenticity of everything that we do in Detroit. So it's kind of it's the Shinola of food.
Absolutely.
The crafting, the ingredients, the proprietary recipes, all that intellectual property. So that'll be going on the MLS.
Well, there's enough land there that not only could you open up the ice cream store again, you could also invite people to bring in food trucks and do little, neighborhood gatherings. I can tell you right now that neighborhood for 30 plus years has been struggling. Mm-hmm. Home values dropping, crime rates rising. Anyone you talk to who lives over there or knows that area would be like, wow, 10 years ago I would have been afraid to go here. Mm-hmm. But we just sold a home on Goldburn. This is the intersection of Goldburn and McNichols. Just 2 blocks from this building was this beautiful little mid-century thing, a lot like what you would see in Oak Park. And, it sold for double what it would have sold for just 2 years ago. And that's the rise of that neighborhood. People are restabilizing. They're loving it. And I'm going to pause just for a minute to let Heather do a station ID.
You're listening to you're watching WJZZ Podcast and listening. This is Motown Realty with Jay Taylor and Heather Dell. Yes. And I also was looking at that building, and there's enough room in there that they could probably lease a portion of it, or maybe even do some kind of an addition or something where you could have a complimentary business.
Well, so like one of the bays, if you think about the building has 4 or 5
That's a
spaces.
good way to put it.
One of the bays that is currently just used for warehousing of large equipment and cartons and stuff has 14, 15-foot ceilings with pressed tin. We're talking this could, without hardly any work, have the hardwood floors polished to perfection, the tin ceiling spot cleaned, the doors opened, and you're ready to run something.
Yeah, that would be...
No renovation needed. Just open the doors and clean it.
Yeah, that would be pretty great. And there's plenty of room in back for a beer garden, too.
It's a flat roof. Rooftop deck beer garden.
Could do that, too. What else do we have coming up?
Well, I'll tell you right now, there's a 33-unit apartment building on Dexter.
That's right.
This 33 apartment building also includes 5 storefronts on ground floor. So you're getting just a massive icon on this really attractive corridor. It's Albert Kahn era construction. The rooftop has an elevator all the way to the top with views of downtown, straight down. You can see Midtown, you can see New Center. This is at 4 or 5 stories tall.
5.
I think it's 5. 5 stories tall, and it has 33 units ranging from, efficiency 1 bedrooms all the way up to, several 2 bedrooms that have commanding views. They're in good condition. Mm-hmm. The building does need a new boiler system. The building does need a new elevator. So there will be some large capital improvements, but it's priced incredibly reasonably. One could purchase 33 units, renovate them, and have over $900,000 of income a year from this building.
And that's before renting out the storefronts.
Yep.
You've got this retail opportunities there. And we all know that, Detroit needs everything, right? Every neighborhood I go into, they're like, oh, can you tell someone to open a bakery? Can you tell someone to open a bike shop? Can you tell somebody? And, I'm like, well, yeah, sure. I'd love to find people to do those things. We got plenty of real estate. So your startup cost is certainly as low here as it can possibly be. I mean, that's the beauty of Detroit, right? Whether you want to make pickles or beer or pencils or watches or ice cream or chocolates, whatever you want to make.
Low barrier of entry.
Low barrier of entry. I like that. I looked at a stunning colonial on East Outer Drive. That's going to be coming up.
This one hit our Instagram account. If you go to JTA Realtors, that's the @ symbol, JTA Realtors, and look at the most recent stories and post, you will see a bunch of coming soon. And one of them is this East English Village colonial you're describing. Tell us more.
It has been in the family for a very long time, and it's dated. It is to the current occupants' taste. They're packing up. But to that end, the adult children have lived in it, the grandparents lived in it, parents lived in it. They've taken really good care of the home. It's got a phenomenal backyard that's all fenced in, and it's got a fire pit and a stone patio, and it has a 2-car garage that's getting re-sided right now with new vinyl siding. Has a newer roof, gutters, the whole thing. The basement is finished. There are, it's beautiful.
Also, tell me what you know about Outer Drive, because Outer Drive is one of those streets that no matter where you are in Metro Detroit, you're pretty close to an Outer Drive.
Well, yeah, this is East Outer Drive,
yeah.
Very East Outer Drive.
And so Outer Drive, I grew up in a different country. A lot of people don't know this, but
Such a show-off.
I'm Hispanic, and so growing up in Mexico, we had this word called periférico, which is another way of saying like a service loop, like around Detroit, the 696, 275 interstate loop.
Yeah, and out east they call them jug handles.
Sure. In Detroit, home of the automobile, home of the paved road, Outer Drive represents something special. It represents the history of roads, because Outer Drive would be the very first jug handle. It's this non-interstate loop around the city
with beautiful medians.
You can start Outer Drive down in Dearborn and you can finish it over in Grosse Pointe, and it's the same Outer Drive the entire way around.
This is a stone's throw from Grosse Pointe.
Yeah.
And they're putting in all new infrastructure, everything. DTE, consumers, the water department, all brand new infrastructure. It should be done in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
It's a beautiful, quiet boulevard. The yards are larger there than almost any other.
Oh, this is a corner lot, too.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. All right.
Mm-hmm. So that's coming up. And we talked about Weyburn last week, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath on Weyburn, also over in the east side, now that I'm an east sider. That would be a fantastic first-time home.
So we just got a caller, and introduce yourself.
No, I think that means we have 5 minutes.
Oh, is that what that phone call means?
I think so, yeah. Oh, wait, do we have a phone call? I think the red light means we have 5 minutes.
I just saw anonymous call.
Oh, well, maybe that's maybe we have a call and we have 5 minutes.
They mentioned stalkers.
I know. Well, I know. That's why I don't put my picture on my hey, you're on the air? Motown Realty with Jay Taylor and Heather Dell. Is anyone out there? Hello?
I bet they have their Bluetooth in and their phone can't be heard.
Are you on mute?
All right, we hung up on them.
Sorry about that.
So my favorite listing right now, and I'm going to tell you right now, this listing is a diamond. It's a gem. Is in Highland Park. Now, Heather, you could geek out about Highland Park for the entire hour.
Forever.
Give our listeners 20 seconds. Why do you love Highland Park?
Well, I love Highland Park for the history. I love how it's a sliver of its own city. There is some great history there, some great architecture there. Highland Park to me has always been about the people. Some of the first major the Highland Appliance, this iconic appliance store, kind of the precursor to your big Home Depots and everything else. And my favorite thing logistically about Highland Park, aside from the people and the community, obviously the Chamber of Commerce, is that everyone going into Detroit has to go, if on Woodward, the main corridor has to go through Highland Park, and everyone leaving Detroit has to go through Highland Park. So you've got this little sliver left, and people, it's developed into Baltimore Station, and then you do have this little sliver left, and there's lots and lots of rumors about who's buying what and who's doing what, but man, it is just nothing but opportunity.
Yeah, so if you were looking at Detroit back in 2010, when Dan Gilbert started purchasing buildings downtown, and when you were looking at Detroit when Illett started buying whole warehouses and doing stuff, you missed out if you didn't jump in on that. And so now in 2021, you're looking back 11 years and saying, I wish I would have done something. And I can tell you right now, Highland Park is that city where it's not too late. You can still buy things at $10 to $30 per square foot.
It's insane.
So I have a little house there. It's in really great condition. 87 Florence. It's the
I love Florence.
First or maybe second, I think it's first block off Woodward. We're talking, you're on the thoroughfare of Highland Park. It's this cute little house, 2-car garage in great condition. You have original woodwork. You have a great layout, 3-bed, 1-bath. You could easily add a second bath in the basement. This house is phenomenal.
So we're actually running out of time. Tell our listeners and our viewers when this is going to be live and how they can find it.
Oh, it is live.
Oh, it is live.
Google 87 Florence or go to our website, jtarealtors.com, and search our inventory. You will find it's a very cute house. You can buy it for under $90,000 right now.
That's crazy.
You could put a tenant in there for $1,000 a month. This is an incredible home. It's just 2 blocks from the Palmer Park, where they've put tennis courts and a huge playground and
I dare say it's gotten a little bougie.
a pond you can walk around.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for today.
All right. I guess we got to go. I want to say thanks for hosting me today.
No, I thank you. It's always a good time. Motown Realty on WJZZ Cool TV. Thanks for tuning in every week from 4 to 5. Join the conversation at 313-355-6018. We always want your questions. No question is a bad question. No question is a silly question. We want to provide as much real information about real estate for real people that we possibly can. So we look forward to having you back next week.